Welcome to the Vernon Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Vernon. Hope everybody is ready for the weekend. We have the NFL draft behind us. We'll react to that real quick. Talk about a couple of key takeaways, couple of key moves. If the Saints are smart, if they did the right thing, what are they going to have next up for them? Then we'll talk about some SEC win totals. Las Vegas is trying their best to guess who's going to be the top dogs, new teams, a lot of turnaround. We'll break it all down for you. See if the win totals too high, too low, whatever the case may be. As per usual, drop your comments, questions, concerns, anything you want to chime in on in the chat would pop it up on the screen. Hit that thumbs up as well for us. So, obviously, New Orleans Saints last night, NFL draft, big spectacle. Everybody wants to know who are they picking? Where are they going to pick? Are they going to pick a quarterback position? You got a bunch of rumors, a bunch of murmurs, everything coming in and out in between. And it didn't happen yet. A lot of things didn't happen yet for people in the NFL draft. We'll get to a lot of that later, but the New Orleans Saints select Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas. And my initial takeaway was he was obviously ranked up there with Will when all the arm length controversy was going on. The person that they would have potentially slide up above Campbell was Kelvin. So it's a good addition, right? This is the takeaway, though. It obviously shows the state of the New Orleans Saints offensive line. Kellen Moore got in and probably realized he had to get it in while he could. A number 9 pick over 4 years makes roughly 20 to 25 million comparatively to a veteran that you're going to get in at that position, probably making that in a damn year. So the early investment in a position group that's not that glamorous. Yeah, the Saints do it more often. We talked on the show like 3 days ago about how the last 12 first-round picks the Saints have, 9 of them been in the lineman category. And now in the last 13, you can say 10, but it's just what it is, especially in this situation when you didn't have a lot of those pieces left on the board for you. Ted, Genty, what have you. Obviously, the trade back was still in the option, but with the way that the quarterback draft and the overall stock projection was going, makes sense while they waited. Jackson Dart fell, not as bad as Shador, obviously, who's still on the board, but Jackson fell to 25 to the Giants, which for some people isn't even a fall, right? But the draft day heroics, there's always late day rumors and murmurs, and it's so hard to peel through what's true, what's not, what's smoke screens, what's actually relevant. There's a lot of things that sometimes hold substance, and there's also a lot of things that sometimes are just put out there to confuse the people ahead of them. For Jackson Dart, at least, going to New York, pretty decent situation, right? A lot of people were expecting them to be quarterback dependent and probably drafting one within the top 3. But they were able to make some free agency moves. Obviously, Russell Wilson, who got the starting job already. Brian Dable said last night after grabbing Jackson that Russ is going to be the guy. This is a good situation for Dart. You're learning from a quarterback that's honestly a similar type to you. I feel like that their playing styles are going to complement each other well. And Russ is not exactly the quarterback that I think is going to be, your 4 or 5 year piece. This is definitely a bridge quarterback and definitely something I'm sure not a lot of quarterbacks would be thrilled to participate in. You've seen recent, kind of rejections of it, whether it be Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr or all these different pieces. But now, hopefully, Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart can mesh together. As far as Shador Sanders, still not picked, and you've been seeing the reaction online. He's saying he knew this shouldn't have happened and all these different things. Look, this is the first takeaway I have from this. First off, 30 days ago, even not even 30, you could have said like 20 days ago, if you said Shador was not going to be the second quarterback taken off the board, a lot of people would have been impressed. A lot of people would have said, what the hell? You're insane. Nobody would have even believed you. Now you're in a reality where Jackson Dart potentially was the more thought after or sought after prospect the entire time. And it really just begs the question about this overall draft prospect. And like I said, like, do you really put full stock into the scouts and the mock drafts and all these things at this point? If last minute they're going to completely switch up, it's one of the weird things about this time of the year for sure. As far as other picks, Will Campbell, 4th to the Patriots. That's as expected. Not a huge surprise. Congrats to Will Campbell, though. Most definitely. I mean, that's a great location for him to go to. Top 5 pick. It's the ceiling that we expected number 7 to be able to hit and accomplish. So, congrats to him and his family. Ashton Genty, Legentinol getting the RB value on the way up, going to the Raiders at number 6. A lot of people have been questioning the value of the running back, the price, this, that, the third. There's been a lot of pieces that you can look to that have been blowing up offenses. Obviously, the easy ones, the Saquons, the Derrick Henrys. You still got guys like Bucky Irving who have been able to turn up and been a big catalyst for their offense. So, I mean, the running back position still holds a lot of value in my eyes. Jaguars, one of the biggest trades of the night. They move up, go to pick 2, snag Travis Hunter, the two-way. Going to try to pair him with Brian Thomas. This could potentially be the best player in the draft, guys. I'm not even going to go out on a limb and say that Cam Ward has a bunch of problems or has these issues or this or that. Cam Ward's a good pick. It's a good pick for a team that really needed that position to be answered. However, in terms of overall potential and what he could do for you instantaneously, especially in a position at Jacksonville where I feel like cornerback and wide receiver were both really on the draft board for them, and you really crossed both spots off at one position. So it was worth it, at least in that regard. Otherwise, they were probably going to go for an offensive skill player like maybe an Ashton Genty. At times, you heard potentially, but you never know here with things like this. In the end, they get Travis Hunter. He's there with Brian Thomas, Mason Smith, George Jefferson, some more LSU pieces. Very interesting draft. Day 2 continues. Hoping to see Mason Taylor, Braden Swenson, Emory Jones, some more LSU names get there. Hear their name called by the commissioner, by some people, get the pick in, get it submitted, get it officialized. Go play some football on Sundays, guys. This journey ain't finished, though. We'll be doing the NFL draft coverage throughout the weekend. Stay tuned on socials at Verdin Verdict. Let's talk about these LSU position groups. All right, so I'm going to give you 3 position groups in LSU football. I'd keep a close eye on, but this is where you're going to see the most change. And by most change, it might not necessarily be positive. It's just going to be different. All right. Some of these, I'm not going to say not going to be positive. However, we're just going to be clear as can be. So, obviously, offensive line. I think it could even change a lot more than what we've shown you in the spring. Like this is going to continuously change week after week after week after week. And I don't even think I have to explain it. You lose 4 of your 5 starters. Got to replace a lot of pieces. Still got a lot of battles. One going on right now, specifically right tackle. Brian Kelly talked the other day to the Advocate in an interview during the Zurich Celebrity Classic, and he pretty much confirmed Weston Davis being the right tackle. Now, this poses a lot of questions. Where does Josh Thompson slide in? Is he going to be at a guard spot? And if he's at a guard spot, does he take Cohen Eccles? Does he take Paul Mubanga? Then another question I've got in terms of the center. Let's say Braylon Moore does start, which I'm not going to say is looking unlikely, but it hadn't been the case yet in spring. Spring is still premature, though. However, let's say Braylon Moore starts at center. Now you're going to be in a situation where DJ Chester probably takes another one of those guard spots. So you could potentially change both guards. You could also potentially change a center. It's your 3 interior linemen right there. So all I'm getting at is this is a work in progress for sure. We're going to have to see what that Weston Davis position, at right tackle means for Josh. That's going to be an interesting takeaway. I'm thinking the loser of the center battle could still be in the interior piece. I feel like it's not guaranteed, but it seems to be one of the better decisions that they could make here. This is the biggest area of change by far, though, and it's unfortunate because it's the most important unit. I mean, without a consistent offensive line that's able to protect and make that push and open up those gaps, your offense is going to run into a little bit of a slow spot. I'm not going to lie. So you're going to need this O-line to come together really, really quickly in order for LSU to fulfill their potential, right? The next segment we'll do here in about 5-10 minutes is going to be SEC win totals. And LSU's is in a little bit of an interesting situation. And I think this is probably going to be why. One of the biggest pieces, the offensive line questions. Answer those. Got a lot of your worries out of the door. Let's talk about edge. Lost your entire pair to the NFL draft, right? Swenson and Savion, both of them hoping to hear their names called here in the NFL draft. You pour in 3 different people to try to replace that production that you lost. Then you develop a stud, Gabriel Ralford. So you've got some pieces, right? That room is going to look a little interesting as far as the edge piece of it. Now, as far as the interior defensive line, as we said on Wednesday, it's not necessarily a soft spot. It's not necessarily a spot that they needed to portal somebody in at. But just with the recent injuries and minor bumps that you've seen with Sadir, with Dominic McKinley, it's obviously a position that could benefit from another body. And LSU sniffing it out. As far as the transfer portal, it did close. So the portal, you can't enter it. However, as we explained, if you're already in it, You can make a commitment to a new school. You still do your visits. You just got to be in it by the deadline, which is today. Bernard Gooden is in it. The USF D-line transfer. More change could be on the way for LSU's defensive line room. He's visiting the campus till Saturday, which is tomorrow. He's a number one portal player available. And they're doing this rather quickly. I mean, you enter the portal. This is, I think, the first spot that he's going to. He'll be here for like 3 days. Could be one of those pieces that you can just hurry up and lock in on, and it would be a nice addition. You can't really get enough interior defensive linemen, especially when you got 2 of them potentially that are battling some injuries. So it's going to be something to keep eyes on, especially in terms of changing. The room's going to continuously change. It's going to, I feel like, look better. It's going to improve. It's going to keep taking the right steps, because what you've seen in spring is additional, impact. Them being able to create pressure, them being able to wreak havoc. I feel like that's one of the more prevalent takeaways from this defensive line that I think is going to also pair into them being the biggest change. It's like you got turnaround, you got a new coach and Kyle Williams, but you also have, I think, a different scheme and a different, result. I think they're going to be able to actually kind of push the pace a little bit and get that opposing offense off the field. Hopefully. Now, these 2 things are obviously going to have to go hand in hand. LSU's offensive line is going to have to protect and allow Garrett Nussmeier to be able to create some things, so when the defense does get the opponent off the field, some points can be scored in response. It's going to be some complimentary football. I'm not going to spoil it too much, though. Let's talk about corners. New faces. You got 3 of your first 4 corners, depth chart-wise, that are brand new. Brand new. Mansour Delay, DJ Pickett, Jakeem Jackson. Still got Ashton Stamps, obviously. Still got guys like PJ Woodland, Mike Turner. You got your usuals. But you got a lot of names to pick from. A lot of choices. You're not handcuffed. You're not strapped. You still got enough to be able to work something. And in this position group, the more rotations, the better. That's the more things you can work with, the more things you can roll out, play with. Here's I guess the only worry for LSU's cornerback room this entire time, if you had to make any single thing a point of emphasis, it was retaining your production. Lock the portal door. Don't let anybody leave. Keep everybody in the building. Adding people like Mansour, like Jakeem, it might have made someone grew restless. Someone like PJ Woodland or someone of that nature, especially with an addition like DJ Pickett, who's rumored to in his first year already get thrown in the mix, and he's looking the part already. The fact that you don't lose a corner to the portal in this position, I think is very big for LSU. Very big for their defense, very, very big for the defensive future. Toughest part is retaining that talent. Easiest part, in my eyes, is developing it. They're already in the doors. They're already a part of the culture, the building. And some of them can even get thrown out in the second rotation, as we're talking about. Probably going to be Mansour and Ashton rolling out in the first. But as far as that second team, I'm going to be interested to see if DJ Pickett's getting rolled down into that mix. And then PJ Woodland as well, who I feel like has earned his keep. That's one of the big names, I think, this season that you're really going to have to watch get implemented and watch his role grow. PJ Woodland, because that's somebody that can start on an SEC team. He's SEC caliber. Yeah, he's a little smaller. Yeah, he's got to put on some weight. Yeah, he's got to show himself. But that's one of the corners that's been flashing through spring. I'm not going to lie. Safeties, too, a little bit different. Because you got a position switch with Toviano, so he's still a name that you remember, but it's a different spot, not where you remember him at. And then also adding to Marcus Cooley. So, yeah, defensive backs, I think, are going to be an area of change as well. Now, I'm not going to say that all of these position groups are 100% confident in the changes. I think the defensive line, the cornerback rooms, that's the areas where you've seen the most growth, and you feel, all right, this is an area that we've actually turned around well. Offensive line, you're going to have to work on that one. You're going to have to continue to see that one grow. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that it's uncertain, and uncertainty sometimes creates confusion, and you don't need that on the way to a championship. How you get to the championship, though? You got to win football games. And Las Vegas has a set guess for how many wins specific SEC teams will get. We'll break every single team and their win total down right now. LSU's, we're going to start it off. It's at 8.5, minus 130, favored to win over 8 games, putting them in that, 9-ish range. I think that it feels a little too low instantly off impact, off read. However, the more you dig deep, the more you dive in, the more realistic it gets. Because think about it. If they put 9.5 on there, you're going to have to make it underdog. You're going to have to make it plus, because now that's a double-digit win season. And if you take a look at the toughest games, we broke them down the other day as well. Clemson, Ole Miss, Bama. And you can throw in a fourth sneaky L like a South Carolina or maybe an Oklahoma. And I'm not saying they're all guaranteed. Those are just your toughest games. So it's mapped out. The path to whatever Vegas is putting here, 8.5, it's mapped out because that's an 8-4 season. And obviously, you get the ninth win with the bowl game that you'd be eligible for, but this is all based off the regular season. Tigers got a lot of offensive talent. Obviously, they got Nussmeier, and Nussmeier's got a lot of weapons. But as we said, there is a big glaring question mark in the room, and that room is the offensive line. It's not going to be one of those things that I don't think you can address. I do think it'll take time. I do think there will be growing pains. I do think some moments is going to look interesting. However, as I said, position group with the most change, still not even close to being done, not even close to being finalized. Got 2 battles going on currently that probably will go on through the spring or through the fall. Now, I don't think there's a way that they drop all those tough games. If so, oh Lord, you're in a situation you ain't even worrying about your win total. If you drop all those games, you can be worrying about a lot more. There's an interesting comparison here, though. Ole Miss 8.5 minus 200, same exact boat as LSU. Guess it kind of makes sense as well. It's a little. They're in the same boat in a sense where they have a question mark that they're going to have to answer. Theirs is on offense as well. It's not offensive line. I think it's quarterback with the Simmons kid. I mean, he's been in the Lane system for a little bit. I know Lane's a good developer of quarterbacks. He's good at looking at the talent that he has in a room and able to, fit a scheme around it. So I can see Ole Miss kind of being on the rise, on the come up, on the elevation prospect. But this is a big test for him this year. This is Lane Kiffin's biggest test yet, quite frankly. New quarterback, going back into Georgia on the road. You got the Georgia win last year. You're going to have to double down and go into a hostile environment, try to get it again. Because if that happens, I think you're looked at entirely differently as a coach. If you're Lane Kiffin getting 2 Georgia victories back to back. Now let's talk about Alabama. Theirs is at 9.5, and theirs is underdog. And it's the situation I was saying for LSU, which didn't really make a whole lot of sense. But when you break it down more and more and more, you kind of see it. So LSU's at 8, Ole Miss is at 8. They put Bama at 9, but they are the ones that are plus 125, which I do think is wild that Alabama is considered ahead of LSU and Ole Miss in the rebuild, because I feel like the championship clock, their overall timer, whatever you want to call it, it reset whenever Nick Saban left. Whenever he joined ESPN, whenever he started going on College Game Day, that's when Alabama pretty much slid out of the championship contender spot for a lot of people. I'm not saying they can't get back to it. I'm just saying they're not in it right now. And with Jalen Milroe leaving, the ranking, it's a little interesting. They got, I feel like, a little more to figure out than a lot of teams. It's not saying it can't happen. It's just saying it's going to be interesting to watch. The ranking for Alabama is probably just based off of past success. It's another thing that we got to think about. Another thing we got to keep in consideration is that it's one of those programs that has sustained a lot of wins. They got a lot of people's numbers. A lot of people don't want to rule them out. This is one of those safe picks that Vegas is trying to make. But if you're fading anyone, you're fading this one. Georgia, 9.5. Minus 170. I'm going to agree with this one. They're favoring them to go double digits. UGA, top program for quite some time. It's hard to expect otherwise. And this is kind of the same exact thing with Alabama. A lot of people are just recency bias moments, and they're locking in on a team that has had sustained success. Quarterback, not going to be brand new. He played a college football playoff game with Beck was earned, Gunnar Stockton. That defense is going to be sharp, though. The defense is going to be sharp, which is going to give you a chance. Kirby Smart's the best head coach in college football, which is going to give you a chance always. With both of those things, I think Georgia could potentially be a double-digit win team for sure. Now, Texas, this is the biggest damn win total. And look, seems about right because they were in the SEC title their first year, but 10.5 wins at plus 140. They're thinking they get the 10th win. They don't think the 11th one is favored, at least. Now, they're obviously going to be a big contender. Their season's going to start off real tough. Week 1, Columbus, defending national champions. Good luck. You're going to be in a situation where Arch, man, he might be sweating. He might be sweating in prime time in his first moment being the guy. I don't know. I think the defense could carry. I think it'll be close. I think it could be really, really close. And, I mean, look, even if you get the under, we're sitting here talking about 10 or 11 wins. If you get 10 wins, you probably go in the SEC title game. You're locked for a college football playoff. You're probably going to Atlanta. So all this is small potatoes in between. But I don't know about that 10.5. I'm going to just say under only because it's saying 11. It's a little big. Tennessee, obvious. This one's obvious. Nico left. It dropped. It was at 9.5. It's moved to 8.5, and now it's even underdog at 8.5. And it's wild because I would have put them ahead of LSU, ahead of Ole Miss, ahead of Alabama. I would have put them ahead of all those teams in terms of development, in terms of what they are going to have to do to be able to get their team into the big dance. Tennessee's defense still polished. They got their cornerback room intact. They did lose Pierce, but they did retain some pieces as well. I think this win total seems about right. Could see it a little higher, but Tennessee got some question marks to answer. So all in all, LSU at 8.5. I'd say all right, and just right. And got some questions to figure out. Ole Miss, 8.5. I could say over on them. I ain't gonna lie. I could see Ole Miss getting a 9th win. Texas 10.5. I'll go under. 11 seems wild. Alabama 9.5. I'm going under, bro. Not gonna lie. Georgia 9.5. I'll go over. Play it safe. Tennessee 8.5. So over is 9. Yikes. I'll go under for Tennessee. Just cause. Let's play it. Let's play the game here, guys. So before we get out of here, I want to tell you about a couple things. First, LSU versus Tennessee this weekend. Baseball series at the box. Make sure to tune in. Number 4, number 5. Revenge time for Jay Johnson and the boys for last year in the SEC tourney. Series starts today at 6:30. We'll be here until Sunday. UFC fight night this weekend with Ian Gary, but we do have some MMA news. We have an interview coming out with Drake Pellegrin, UFC profiler or UFC coach / profiler from Lafayette, trains with guys like Dustin Poirier, coaches people like Carly Judas. So that's going to be a very interesting interview for y'all. We'll be dropping that this afternoon. Wanted to give you a little heads up on the stream first before we let that out there, though. Any questions, concerns, comments, anything you want to talk about on Monday's stream, drop it in the comments. We'll make a mailbag segment, write them all down, talk about it all. Full discussion. Make sure you're there. 9 a.m. Monday morning. Please hit the thumbs up on the way out. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of the Verdant Verdict, bringing you that sports talk on the go. I'm your guy, Jacob Vernon. Enjoy your weekend.